explain to me what the changes to places of safety will be under the Mental Health Bill?
Yes, so the proposal is to remove prisons and also police stations as places of safety. At the moment, it's good practice not to use those areas, but the removal of those completely as an option may have an impact on the use of other areas as places of safety. And typically we're seeing that A&E departments are being used predominantly as places of safety. Some of the issues that might arise from that are that typically the individuals who you might accommodate within those areas are offenders, and so the risk would be higher than usual. And so there might need to be some further discussions with local police and local policies agreed on how those increased risks might be managed in different areas.
So what other changes are there which relate to patients within the criminal justice system?
So within the criminal justice system, those patients are dealt with under Part 3 of the Act, so that's staying the same. That's differentiated between Part 2, which is your civil section, so people who are detained under Section 2 or Section 3, for example. So your Part 3 patients are usually either individuals who've committed an offence and that is disposed of by way of hospital order, or sometimes you have individuals who receive a prison sentence and then subsequently need transfer into hospital. So one of the big changes is trying to put on a statutory footing transfer periods. So good practice currently, in accordance with NHS England guidelines, is that transfer should take place within 28 days. So what the bill is trying to do is put that on a statutory footing so that the aim is to ensure that transfers happen within that time frame. Whilst there's changes to the criteria within the civil detention sections, that is not going to apply to those under the criminal justice system. So for example, the changes to remove the ability to detain individuals with learning disability or autism under Section 3 of the Mental Health Act will not apply to the criminal justice part of the Mental Health Act. So those individuals can still be transferred from prison, for example, to hospital or disposed of by way of hospital order. There is a slight change, however, that the renewal criteria will change. And so you will have a bit of an unusual scenario where you have a non-restricted patient, the renewal criteria would be higher than the original criteria applied. So that is an anomaly that will occur within those individuals.
Can I just now move on to discharge? How will discharge of Part 3 patients be impacted by the Mental Health Bill?
So there will be a power for tribunals to place conditions as part of any decision to discharge, a supervised community discharge that can amount to a deprivation of liberty. So you might be aware that recent case law caused some issues in terms of patients not being able to be discharged subject to conditions which amounted to a deprivation of liberty, and that caused some issues. And so that is effectively remedied by the proposed changes to the Act that will allow that to happen.
So are you referring to the Supreme Court judgment of 2018?
Yes. So in that judgment, there was a decision made by the court that individuals who had capacity could not be subject to conditions which would otherwise amount to a deprivation of liberty. And that caused some practical difficulties for trusts, in particular trying to discharge restricted patients, and different arrangements that needed to be put in place to enable that to happen, because there needs to be a balance obviously between discharging individuals and protecting public safety.
So overall, when we're considering the impact on providers and commissioners, what do you think the impact will be, and do you have any tips for them to prepare?
So I think that the main players are going to be mental health trusts, integrated care boards, local authorities, but they'll need to work with all community organisations and the police to look at how they can coordinate and work together smoothly. So things that can be done in preparation are making sure that all of the staff within your relevant organisation understands what the changes are, that they've received appropriate training to understand how they should be implemented and how that's going to work. Things that can be done, such as reviewing policies and local agreements that are in place to make sure that they're all updated and that they work well together. Having really good local connections, good communication between services to make sure that crisis and contingency care planning is all in line and ready for discharge, and also managing some of those more riskier patients on discharge, and making sure that they can remain safe in the community. You can also do things like consult patients with experience of going through the system and what support worked for them and what didn't. Sometimes that can be really helpful in order to plan effectively.
Thank you very much, Rachel. That was really useful.
Thank you.